Welcome back, everybody. We're doing question and answer now, so a couple of questions will come up on the prompter for me, and I'll try to answer them in as much detail as is possible. So we've got one coming in from Alex, and I think she or he. I'm sorry if I have this wrong, but let's just say she. Alex asks, please tell us more about the creation of your new work. How has isolation affected the creative process for you? Well, the second part of the question I can answer very positively, and that is that isolation has made the creative process easier because I'm at home a lot more and I've got more free time. It doesn't always amount to more work if you're at home, but certainly I think given the circumstances and the emotional response that we have to the pandemic, I think there's, at least for creative people, some need to do something. I read somewhere that during the plague that many of the greatest English writers produce some of their most important work, and that's, I can absolutely see how that would be possible, because there's something about a collective coming together of everybody during the pandemic that maybe fires something inside of you to create or do things that you had not done before. Specifically about the new work, well, in modern times you can write in a lot of styles. You can write something that sounds like every other modern piece that's around, or you can write something that sounds like Bach or Mozart or Chopin or Rachmaninoff, depending on what you want to do. Composition, I find, is always difficult in the sense that that you have to firmly establish some rules for yourself so that you can then be as creative as you can be within those rules. Nobody imposes any rules on me, but I think the one thing that I wanted to impose on myself for this particular nocturne that I wrote was that I wanted the piece to have a romantic texture so that it would be pianistic, but I wanted it to have a more updated modern feel about it. So whilst it's still tonal, it certainly is very chromatic and moves around quite a lot. But I think at the core of it, it's still a very pianistic and romantic piece, which is what I really wanted. So I hope that that answers your question, Alex, and maybe we'll move on to the next question. This next question is from Eliza. Hello, Eliza, and thank you for your question. It reads, how does a remote audience affect your performance and playing style? I guess if I were to be really honest, it doesn't affect me at all whether the audience is here or present with me in the room or is online somewhere in the world via the internet. In terms of what I want to do, it's always the same thing. I only speak the voice that comes from within, and I don't change my playing style, or certainly not what I want to say artistically, depending on where the audience is situated. It doesn't affect me in terms of physically, nerves and all of that sort of stuff. Well, certainly it does. I mean, this is my first time playing a completely full recital that's live to an audience that's just out there and there's nobody in the room. So I did find the adrenaline level to go up and down quite a lot, whereas when the audience is with you in the room, it's always at quite a high level. So I would say that from a purely technical point of view, it is harder to maintain concentration when you're playing a live stream performance like this. Certainly was my experience today. So I hope that answers your question, Eliza, and we'll move on to the next question from Sarah. When composing your new work, did you hear with a section in your head, or did you just start at the beginning and work your way through the whole piece? This is a very interesting question. It really depends on your approach to creating something. Are you the sort of person who just puts something on paper and then from that point on you develop the idea and then you take it into places where you don't even know what will happen? Or are you the sort of person who puts out a specific plan and then by certain limitations that you put on yourself, certain composing methods, you then create as best you can within that? I guess I did a little bit of both. I mean, I wanted to write a nocturne, so I knew that I wanted an opening section that began with a melody, and then I wanted that melody to be repeated. So it's pretty traditional. And then I wanted a middle section that would act as a kind of like fantasy-like moment, and then a cadenza leading to the return of the opening melody, and then I wrote a little closing section. We like to call that a coda in music circles. So definitely there was a structure there. And then from that point on, I asked myself, what is the language that I want to use? Do I want to write music that sounds like Chopin? Well, the answer was yes. Did I want to write music that sounded exactly like his music? Well, certainly the answer was no. And so I went in a search for a particular kind of tonal language that would allude to romantic music, but not necessarily sound as if it could have come from the Paris salons of 1830. So I hope that answers your question. So certainly structure is there. I put certain limitations on myself because I know that if the limitations are there, then I can much more easily be creative within those limits. And I find that I work best when that's the case. So thank you, Sarah, for your question, and I hope that my answer was good enough. We have a question here from Hoang, and this question reads, do you have perfect pitch, and do you think this is an important factor of becoming a great pianist, guitarist? I'm assuming, Hoang, you are a guitarist possibly, or maybe you have an interest in both of them. The answer here is definitely no. A perfect pitch is a somewhat nice ability to have, and as far as I know, people who have this ability innately at some point. I'm not an expert. I don't know how it really works and how people get it or develop it. But to have perfect pitch is kind of like being able to walk into a random location and be able to identify a sound that is of a particular pitch. So whilst that can be very useful, it certainly goes no way into giving you any sort of ability to be creative or any other factors that lead to being great at doing anything, let alone playing the piano or guitar, because there are many other factors involved that would lead to that. So certainly having perfect pitch is one very nice thing to have, but I would say that overall it's certainly not important, and I would say even not very crucial. So I hope that answers your question. And this is our last question for the night from Tom. Do you notice the difference between different pianos? Of course, yes, Tom, is the answer, because all pianos, even when they're made by the same people coming from the same factory, they all exhibit different qualities. So it might be a softer piano, the mechanism of the keyboard may be a bit different, and certainly different pianists will prefer different pianos depending on what their preferences are. And then, of course, sometimes the acoustics in the hall will affect the choice of the piano too. To be honest, we pianists play whatever is in front of us, and we just live with it. So we don't have much choice. Anyway, I do need to conclude the evening, and just want to thank you all again. Please return next Wednesday, the 29th of April, at the same time, 7 p.m. For some groovy vocals by Alicia Joy. If you enjoy hip hop, that's it for you. So, so next week, hope to see you here again, and thank you again for tuning into my recital tonight. Goodbye, everybody.
We would like to thank you and everyone involved in this experience. For more on the Sound Gallery Sessions, visit monash.edu/MLive.